chapters 12, 13a. It's on page 380. When Bathsheba heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. Then, after the time for mourning was over, David sent someone to bring her to the palace. She became David's wife, and they had a son. The Lord's message for David. The Lord was angry at what David had done, and he sent Nathan the prophet to tell the story to David. A rich man and a poor man lived in the same town. The rich man owned a lot of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had only one little lamb that he had bought and raised. The lamb became a pet for him and his children. He even let it eat from his plate and drink from his cup and sleep in his lap. The lamb was like one of his own children. One day, someone came to visit the rich man, but the rich man didn't want to kill any of his own sheep or cattle and serve it to his visitors. So he stole the poor man's little lamb and served it instead. David was furious with the rich man and said to Nathan, I swear by the living Lord that the man who did this deserves to die. And because he didn't have any pity on the poor man, he will have to pay 4 times what the lamb was worth. Then Nathan told David, you are that rich man. Now listen to what the Lord of God of Israel says to you. I choose you to be the king of Israel. I kept you safe from Saul and even gave you his house and his wives. I let you rule Israel and Judea, and even if that had not been enough, I would have given you much more. Why did you disobey me and do such a horrible thing? You murdered Uriah the Hittite, I'm saying that wrong, excuse me, by having Ammonites kill him, so you could take his wife. Because you wouldn't obey me and took his wife for yourself, your family will never live in peace. Someone from your own family will cause you a lot of trouble, and I will take your wives and give them to another man before your very eyes. He will go to bed with them while everyone looks on. What you did in secret, but I will do this in the open for everyone in Israel to see. David said, I have disobeyed the Lord.
Today's Bible reading is really a continuation of what we started last week. And when we were this morning in Bible and Bagels, I asked the people there, if this had been made into a movie, what rating would it have? And most people thought it'd be probably R-rated. Who said the Bible's boring, all right? Anyway, this is not the kind of thing that you probably read in Sunday school, is it? Especially what they said they're going to do with his wives, and they're going to all go to bed with somebody else in public and all that kind of thing. That's not the point of the story. The point is that David did something very horrible. He saw his next door neighbor, Bathsheba, who was married to this general, and he decided he wanted her. So he arranged it so that her husband, Uriah, would be in the front line of the battle and get killed so he could go have her. Now that isn't really very nice, is it? He was an exceptionally bad boy. And there are consequences. And a lot of folks see people doing horrible things and they think, oh, they're getting away with it. Well, we don't really know about that, do we? We only know what's out there in the public view. We don't know about what's going on in their private lives. We don't know about families that now aren't speaking to each other because of what somebody does. When we behave in both positive and negative ways, there are consequences. And there are also consequences of being a people living in relationship with other people. And when our leaders do something really, really horrendous or stupid, we pay for it. An example is in the year 586 BC, the Babylonian army marched in to Jerusalem and captured the city. And they captured all the environment around there. And they sent a lot of folks into exile. And the thing is, a lot of these people were really good people. What about some of the prophets that were warning people, change your ways, folks, or guess what? The Babylonians are going to take over. And some people said, oh, well, the king and his friends are saying, no problem, everything's okay. Well, it wasn't. So people suffered the consequences of living under the rule of not, you might say, the most enlightened rulers. It happens all the time when we're in relationship with other people. It could be somebody driving down the street who's had way too many drinks and hits a car, wipes out a family. Do you think God wanted this? No. The person who chose to drink was the person who chose not to follow God's will, and others suffered the consequences. I'm just thinking of actually the story of Jesus at the very end of our Gospels. When Jesus overturned the tables of the money changers, do you think the powers that be were going to allow this? Do you think they were just going to sit down and say, oh, well, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we shouldn't cheat poor people from the countryside and charge them an exorbitant rate for a little pigeon. Maybe we woke up now that we heard what he said. Of course not. These are the folks that are the money makers. So what did they do? They started a rumor campaign. And they started this campaign saying that Jesus claims that he's the king of the Jews. And they told it to more and more and more people. And what is it about human nature that we want to, when we hear something bad about somebody, we want to believe it? But then if you hear something good about somebody, it's like, that's the way they're supposed to be. Unfortunately, people believed it. And he was crucified as a consequence. They weren't going to let him get away with this, with ruining their enterprise. And what about in modern times? Can you think of something in modern times? Just in the news this past week, how many of you heard about the dentist who shot that lion that was in the it was like a game preserve, and they lured the lion out into the open territory and shot it with an arrow, and the poor thing suffered before they actually really killed it. But there were consequences, weren't there? There was outrage all over the world. This dentist who lives in Minnesota lost his dental practice. He can never practice dentistry again. His home is being surrounded. He's in hiding right now. And I don't know what kind of a reaction he's having from his family. That's kind of, private, and not sharing it with anybody. But he thought, hey, I have lots of money. I can do whatever I want. I can just go and pay some guy a lot of money, and then I can just go and shoot a lion, cut off the head, and put it on my wall, He didn't get away with it, really. There were consequences. But there are also consequences for positive behavior. Many, many years ago, I had a friend who had a lot of physical problems. He was only in his early 40s. And he had very high blood pressure. The bad cholesterol wasn't very good. And he said to me, because I was just taking physiology at that time, is there anything I can do besides taking these pills? These pills are making me kind of sick, and I don't have much energy, and my relations with my wife are kind of zilch right now. And I said, well, I heard of this center in Santa Monica that can help people, but it's a really, really regimented diet. And you're not going to like it, especially if you're used to eating certain things. How important is this to you? And he said, oh, very important. Well, he went to this center, and now instead of having a baked potato with lots of butter and sour cream and stuff, it's salsa, okay? No red meat, no pork, no shellfish. It is veggie, fruit, chicken breast, white meat, turkey, and salmon. And he had to do that for about 3 months, because this was not a genetic condition. This was caused by his eating habits. And they told him at this center, go to your doctor, Get your blood pressure checked. Get your cholesterol checked. Do not go off of anything until the doctor says, you know, that things have changed. In 3 months, he was down to normal. 3 months of changing his eating habits. There were consequences, positive ones, for changing. And from all I know, I haven't talked to him in many years though, but the last time I talked with him, he was really doing fine and continuing with his diet. I really don't believe that people can just do anything they want and there are no consequences. I think a lot of reasons that we feel that people are getting away with things is that we don't know the whole story. God has asked us, really not a lot. Be kind to people. Be loving. Be accepting. And what I'm going to be talking about next week, forgiveness. That's the toughie, isn't it? Forgiveness is the real toughie. It's hard to forgive when we're so angry. But if we can just do that, loving, accepting, and forgiving, can you imagine what kind of a world we would have? And what would the consequences be? Amazing. Amen.
Amen.
I invite all of you now to get out